there are days that you are not really able to focus on the things you should focus. And that was one of those days. So, without further ado, I want to go to a place that preserved the memories of my own profession, the Church of Saint Cecilia. Cecilia was a young Roman girl, a girl that decided to follow God and to follow Him, giving her own life. The Church of Saint Cecilia was built in the place where was her own house, and from that time it is a place for devotion and for remembrance of this great young Roman girl.
Church goes right back to the martyrdom of Saint Cecilia. At her death, she gave her property to the Pope as one of the first places of worship above ground. Christianity was persecuted at the time. Then, in 821, when the Grand Basilica was built, Pope Paschal also built a monastery, so there were nuns or monks, we don't know which, to look after the basilica. Finally, in 1527, the Pope of the time invited Benedictine nuns from the Campo Marzio in Rome to come and improve observance. And they are the community that still exists as St. Cecilia, Byzantine in origin.
Sister Margaret led me to see a very special place, the first tomb of Saint Cecilia. This very beautiful carved stone is the first resting place for this Roman saint. If you are a nun in Saint Cecilia, of course, you should have music at the core of your daily prayer. And indeed, it is like this also for the nuns of Saint Cecilia, that also are Benedictines, so sharing the love of music of this congregation.
According to the rule of St. Benedict, liturgical music is at the heart of the day, that we praise God throughout the day at different times. And that those services of praise are sung to a music known as Gregorian chant, a very ancient form of music that's quite different from the music we hear today.
And we cannot forget that Saint Cecilia is the saint that protects all musicians.
The original patron of music was St. John the Baptist, and in fact it's the hymn for his feast Utque and Laxis that has given us the music of the solfeggio, which is at the basis of our study of music, modern music usually. But towards the end of the Middle Ages, St. Cecilia's antiphon, the first thing you hear when you sing the music for her feast, whether you're in a monastery or in a cathedral, are the two words cantatibus organis. While the singers were singing and the instruments were playing. And that seems to have caught the imagination of people generally. And St. Cecilia gradually took over. She was always been popular as as a Roman saint going right back to the early times of the church.
The nuns of St. Cecilia do not only sing, but they also want to share with others their love for liturgical music.
The Cantatibus Organis courses started in 2009. They grew out of a question made to me at meetings of Benedictine women superiors in Rome, requests for young women who've entered religious life to be trained in liturgical music without having to go through an academic course that would last 7 years, and a course that would also give training in spirituality. So that was the birth of the course, which now attracts also lay people, people from not only religious from all over the world, but people also in Italy, all walks of life.
But today we live in a world very different from the world of St. Cecilia. So I'm wondering what St. Cecilia can still teach to us today.
I think it's above all her love in her heart for Christ that carried her through everything. Her wedding when she didn't want to be married, and she sang in her heart to Christ. And that really is what made her patron of music, I think. And then her ability to go on in the face of opposition from her own pagan family and from the pagan authorities in Rome, to go on preaching of a love for Christ that converted 400 people, for instance, in her own home, and then enabled her to withstand the tortures of martyrdom. That faith and love and joy, I think that's what is the message that remains for us today.
Love and joy. It isn't what really music is all about. So, when every year on November 22 we remember St. Cecilia, we also refresh our own commitment and we see clearly about the importance of our own mission.